Hello, what's your name? What's your age?
You can just call me Icarus, and I'm 24.
Okay, Icarus. What do you lose by calling trans women women?
I mean, I don't lose anything because I'm a man specifically, but I think that it takes away a lot from female-born women, girls, whatever you want to call them, because they will go through things that trans women will never go through. Like their experiences in life are so much different than that of a trans person, and it kind of takes away what it means to be a woman by calling themselves a woman.
Okay, what are the experiences that all cis women experience that trans women cannot experience?
All is a definite. You can't say all, but a vast majority of women can experience things such as giving birth. They can experience social.
Oh, he disconnected. Uh, Icarus, you can re-request. It's just the TikTok glitch got you. But just FYI, because you said not all, then that's not something you need to experience to be a woman. So they're not taking anything away from women. They're just not experiencing what some women also don't experience. I'm bringing back.
All right, I don't know what happened there.
It's the TikTok
I
glitch. Do
just
you have access? Can you turn your camera on? Because that fixes it. If you
all
can't, you have to update the app.
right, here, give me a sec.
If you just turn it on and back off. Yeah, it fixed it.
And then, are we good now?
Yep, you're all set.
All right, cool.
Did you hear my
Okay,
my response to what you said?
I did, yeah, and I mean, like, you can't say definite in an aspect of anything. The only definite is like being born and dying.
I
So
agree.
there really are no definites. But if if that is the case, then why don't they incorporate things like sports with trans women and female-born women?
I'm sorry. Say that
Like,
again.
why what? So I said if that were the case, then why don't they compete in the same sport categories? Why don't trans women box regular or not regular, but just like natural born women?
They do.
Where I don't believe that is the
There are
case. Why don't they
trans. There are
compete?
trans UFC fighters. There are trans swimmers. There are trans basketball players. They
Right.
do compete in these
Sorry.
things.
I mean men transitioning to women. I mean I've seen the
Yes.
the women transitioning to men, and I get
Wait.
that.
Yes.
Well,
Same.
okay. So
Same
if
thing.
oh, right, right. So
What's her name? Who's the trans?
the swimmer.
Well, Leah Thomas is a swimmer, but there's MMA fighter. What was her
I
name?
actually I don't know
Fallon Fox.
anybody.
Fallon Fox. And then there's also Alana McLaughlin.
Okay. And what is do you have their since you have them up? Do you have their record?
I don't know how many. I think Fallon Fox only fought one. Let me see. Oh no, she fought 5 fights. She won four. Not five, 6 fights. She won five, lost one.
Damn.
Everybody she fought was a cisgender woman.
Gotcha. Okay, well, there's okay. For another example of take away boxing, physical sports like that. What about like powerlifting, weightlifting, things like that that men are just naturally better at because they produce more testosterone?
Yep, there was a trans woman who got into the Olympics. So
Hmm.
you would assume, right, she would win because she was born a cisgender woman, but
Was it
she
by weight
DNF'd.
class?
Was it by weight class? I'm not sure, but she DNF'd either way. She DNF'd. She didn't even finish. She didn't even
Okay,
place.
well,
That's how poorly
I
she did.
mean, yeah. Well, I mean, either way, there's a reason that men and women have separate. They don't compete together. I
I
mean, if
agree.
that
There
were
are
the
biological
case,
differences between males and females.
absolutely.
Some of those typically exert themselves in strength and endurance and things like that. However, based on the sports science that we've seen, 2+ years of hormone treatment tends to lower those biological differences to a non like a like an inconsequential level. That's why
Sure.
most sporting places do have requirements. I think that if you're competing in high school, I don't care. I don't need a requirement. Sports in school should be a social thing anyway. Like I think we shouldn't have sports scholar. It's a whole thing. I don't think there should be scholarships for sports or any of that. I think sports should be totally social in high school. And then when you're out of high school, college I think is fine to have requirements. Professional sports, it's fine to have requirements. It's a nuanced conversation. So I think we should have requirements based on testosterone levels and things like that. But I also think all sports in general should be that way. I think all sports should just be co-ed, and it's just based on skill level and things, biological metrics and things like that.
Okay. I mean, I disagree with, I think being, all sports being co-ed. I mean, if you like, there's no woman on the face of the earth that could play in the NFL. I mean, other than being like maybe a kicker, but we've seen that women try to kick in the NFL and college, and it's just, it just doesn't work, or else
I
they
would
wouldn't be
never make
there.
the claim there is no woman that could compete in the NFL. I think that's a claim that's impossible to substantiate.
It might be impossible, but I would assume with great certainty that there is limited to almost that could compete on the professional level in American football. Same with American men's basketball. There's just such a difference that it just wouldn't be fair. It just wouldn't even make sense to have them compete together. There's a reason that the WNBA and the NBA are separate. No, no, there's no NBA player that wouldn't be a WNBA player. I mean, look what happened with the U15 against the American women's soccer team. I mean,
Hmm.
that's just it's a prime
So
case of
The U15 game was a scrimmage where the
sure.
national
I'm not
girls team was testing out their defense, so they consistently handed the ball over, like literally would get the ball and then
well.
would give it back to the U15.
That was there were two separate. Like one was a match and like a scrimmage match, and then one was like for specific practice. Like there was two.
Wait, no, both of them were the one that both of these games were them practicing to go up against Russia. So they weren't playing all out because they had a game with Russia like literally within the week. I wouldn't go all out if I had a game against Russia. I wouldn't go all out against a bunch of 15-year-olds. And like I said,
Sure.
they were testing defense. So they like consistently were giving the ball back over. They barely
Gotcha.
played an offensive game at all because they were just focused on their defense.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, either way, there is such. I mean, I feel like it'd be pretty foolish to disagree that there's such a physical, just physically, there's men are just disproportionately faster, bigger, stronger. That it really doesn't make sense to make anything co-ed like that.
I think everything should be skill based.
Sure, yeah, but like skill only gets you so far. Like the most skilled woman in the WNBA could not compete against a bench player in the NBA.
I
Like at
actually
the
disagree.
NBA,
I think biological differences are only what will get you so far. I can be tall as hell. I can be as tall as you want. But if I can't shoot a basketball, I'm not going to be any good at basketball.
well, that's why I said
Skill is
NBA
actually
versus
what's more
WNBA.
important.
That's yeah, that's well, sure, but you like the least skilled NBA player would be any non-NBA player in the world. Like the NBA
Also,
is the
there is a cisgender woman who plays NCAA football.
yeah,
Her
and
name
she's
is
their
Haley
kicker.
Van Voorhees. No, she's not
Oh,
a
the
kicker.
are you talking about the safety?
Yeah, she's a safety, free safety.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. She plays what? Like, I don't think she plays at a very good school, and even if it does, I don't think she even starts. But I do know who you're talking about. But what I'm saying is that like that's not the NFL. I'm talking about the NFL, the NBA. Like you can play at these like lower level, liberal colleges where not liberal, liberal arts colleges, and that's fine. But what I'm saying is to compete at like the top level like that, it's not
I don't
possible.
think.
It
Again,
really isn't.
I think you're for somebody who said we should make absolute statements. You're making a very absolute statement here.
Sure, right. And I don't mean to be like no women can, but like it's just inconceivable to think that that would be possible.
I
I
would say
mean,
typically women, your average woman could not compete in like high class sporting events. But that's why I would always just say typically. There is always going to be an atypical, no matter what you say.
sure,
There's
right. And
always going to
there's
be an atypical.
right right. And I'm not discrediting that. I'm just saying that it's very, very slim to none. And if they are, they're not competing. Either way, I don't really agree with the whole idea of trans women just being women. That's really the main point. I know we kind of went off on a tangent there, but
Sure. I mean, so far I don't think
um,
you've been able to substantiate that belief. But if you want to try now, you can.
okay. So so if language doesn't matter, why does it matter that I call them like women, like cis
Language does
women? Like
matter.
why does
Language is very important. It's how we communicate. It's how we talk to each other. Language is very important. I never made the claim that
right?
it
No, no,
wasn't.
no, right. But what I'm saying is that like if it's so important, which it is, I agree with you. Why is it so important that I have to call them that?
Uh,
Like if
Basic
language is so
respect,
like
human
if
decency.
language is just a bunch of made up words where things just have meaning, like why can't I just call them what I feel like calling them? If they want to
Wait,
call themselves that, that's fine. But if I don't feel like calling them that, like, what is
wait. I'll
it
flip
like?
this
Why?
back. I'll flip this back with another social construction. Like right.
Sure.
So if money is so important, right? If money is a social construct and we just made it up, why can I just not pay my taxes?
Well, one's an idea and one's a physical object.
No, money is a social construction. Money only
It
holds
is,
value
it
because we
is,
give
but
it
it's
value.
well, you're comparing currency to like the ideology of being something that you're not.
No, I'm just
Like
comparing social
it's an idea
constructions.
versus right. Okay, but what you're saying is you're comparing something that is essential to not just our economy but the entire world, and then you're comparing that to a what a lot of people agree with as a mental disorder.
Wait, money is only essential because we say it is.
So, okay, yes, but like if it wasn't money, it would be some form of other currency. Like it doesn't matter what it is.
My question would be the same thing with the other currency. This is just a physical object we've placed value on.
Right, absolutely. I
That's what
don't
I'm
disagree with
comparing.
that.
That's what I'm comparing here, right? You're making the claim that this social construction, right?
Hmm.
You don't you if it's made up, why do I have to abide by it? That's what I'm making here. If this social construction is made up, why do I have to abide by it?
Right, sure. But like what I'm like, I get what you're saying, but like from the earliest like stages of time, we have had transactional processes like literally
From
since
the
ever.
earliest
Like since,
stages of time, we've had trans people.
we have not. That
We
is
have.
like so okay, so I'm assuming that you're probably not religious, correct?
No.
Okay, so from a non-religious perspective, from a very uh, what am I trying to say? Like from the earliest, hominids and all that. You're saying that like since the beginning of time, like people who have evolved from these, hominids to cavemen and all this other stuff, they were trans.
I'm saying if you go back to early recorded human history, so like back to Mesopotamia, there were trans people. Ancient Greek and Roman, ancient Greece and ancient Rome had trans people. Ancient Egypt had trans people. All trans people existed throughout all of this time.
So
There
so
also wasn't money during like ancient hominid times either, right?
right,
But I'm
right,
talking
but
about when
ancient
we
hominid
started when
time.
we go ahead.
Go ahead.
They didn't have barter systems during the ancient hominid times either. There was no barter systems then.
Well, during the hominid times, we weren't like I mean, we really weren't like we didn't have like forethought. We didn't have the ability to free think as hominids.
Yeah, around the time that we started creating the social construct of money, trans people have existed.
See, now, can you date back the first earliest transactional process and then date back the original, first person who recorded themselves being trans?
Yeah, it's
And
gonna
like
be
what
around
and
the
what
same.
I'm not like trying to like put you like on blast. I just want to see what those two look
Back to
like.
Babylon to about 2000 BCE was when we first started using money.
And sorry, what was the date?
About 2000 BCE, before Christ.
Right. And are there like recordings of trans people during that time?
Yes.
And do you know what what they defined a trans woman as back then, just so it's congruent with what it is now?
They didn't have the term trans, but it was somebody born male who identified and lived as a woman. This can be seen as far back as like ancient Egypt, which again, ancient Egypt started in like 31,000 BCE.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah,
All right. So now, how do you feel about women? Like, I know I'm a man, but like, how do you feel about women's opinions on women's spaces like bathrooms and like locker rooms and things like that?
well, because I believe trans women to be women, I believe trans women have a claim to those spaces as well.
So, okay, but like, what about the women that who have an opposing view that are uncomfortable with the fact that there's a biologically cis-born man in a women's bathroom?
When we look at disenfranchised groups, I don't care about the comfort of the group that is currently franchised. I don't care about their
So,
comfort.
okay, so why does so what so if we're all about equality, why do you care about one more than the other?
I care. I believe that equality would be both groups getting access to the space. not one group getting the space over another group because they don't feel comfortable with that group in the space.
Right,
That would
but
not be
the
equality. That's quite literally not equality.
right, but what
For
you're
example, let me just give you an example. If someone were to say, well, in 1950, why should black people get to use white restrooms if white people aren't comfortable with them? I would say I don't care if white people are comfortable or not.
okay, but it's more about it's not a okay. So comparing race and comparing
I'm not comparing race. I'm comparing two ways of discrimination.
right, they're both discrimination, but one has the potential and actually been documented to be more violent than the other against women, obviously.
Wait, I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry. What are you talking about?
So there have been quite a few cases of trans, they weren't specifically even trans women, but they were men claiming to be women
Okay, so
for the sake
we
of
should punish
invading women's
trans women.
spaces.
So we should punish trans women for what cis men do.
So, but
How's
yeah,
that
but here,
fair?
that's the thing though. Like, so why are they cis men if they identify as a woman at that time? They're still trans women then.
No, these are quite literally people that weren't trans pretending to be trans, as you just said.
Right, right. But your definition says anybody who believes that they are a woman is a
Nope,
woman. So
that's
at
not what
that
my
point, they
definition
are.
says.
You said that anybody who identifies as a woman
No,
is a trans woman and
no, I
therefore a
didn't.
woman, right?
No, I didn't.
So what is
That's not my
so what is
definition.
your definition? Okay,
Anyone
so what is
whose
your
gender
definition?
identity aligns with their social schema on females.
So you're saying that one day I can't just wake up and I decide like my gender is now that of a
Yes,
woman.
because
I
that's not
truly
how
believe.
correct. That's not how gender identity works.
Right. So how can you distinguish that and how can that be it? But like
Well,
what I'm saying is that
if
like
somebody goes into a restroom and assaults somebody, and they're saying, "Well, I'm trans," I don't think that has anything to do with it. I think they assaulted someone, so they go to jail.
sure, no, I don't disagree with the fact that they should go to jail, but what I'm saying is that like how can you tell them that they're not transgender if that's what they're telling you? Like you have to believe them.
What does them being trans have to do with them assaulting someone?
I'm not saying it has to do with them assaulting somebody, but it has to do with them being in a
Yes,
space
but
that
wait.
is not.
So if about the space issue, if cis women assault cis women in the space, should we remove cis women from the space as well?
No, because cis women naturally are not they're afraid of men invading their space, not women invading their space.
Hold on, hold on. But the issue is we want to keep men out of the space because of assault, because of this risk of assault. But if cis women are
Sure.
also assaulting women in the space, and we say no, but they can stay, then the issue is not about assault. Because
I'm sorry, say it again.
if your issue is we need to keep men out of the space because of assault, but cis
Right.
women assault and you keep cis women in the space, then the issue is not about assault.
Right.
So then why can't trans women use the women's spaces?
Be, because at that point it's not the assault factor, it's the comfortability of I know you said you don't care about cis women's comfortability,
Why are cis
but
women uncomfortable?
that's a that a cis born man is now in their space
Why are they uncomfortable about a cis born man being in their space?
because that does not align with what their gender is. That's because they have a designated space for them, and that is being invaded by
Okay,
somebody that
so
is
then what
not
happens
aligned.
if a mom takes her like 5-year-old son into the bathroom? They be uncomfortable then?
I think the difference between a 20-plus-year-old man and a 5-year-old child are wildly different
Why is there a difference? You said it's just about having someone that doesn't align with their gender in the space. So why would it be different the age of that person?
because it's a child.
Because the reason they're uncomfortable is the assault issue. That's why.
Sure, and
And
sure,
children are not likely to assault. But again,
right.
if we're going to say it's the assault issue, then all bathrooms need to be single use because cis women also assault cis women. So if the issue is assault, bathrooms all have to be single use. That's how that logic would track.
Okay, so do you think that it would be beneficial to have their own bathroom,
Whose own bathroom?
like a trans person's only bathroom?
So like a trans woman would have a bathroom separate from a cis woman.
So there would be a men's bathroom, a women's bathroom, and then anybody who identifies as like trans.
Okay, so would the trans people have to use those bathrooms?
I mean, not necessarily, but it would be designated for that purpose.
So they either use those bathrooms, or what bathroom would they use then?
Whatever bathroom that they would use the bathroom that they were born as. So if they were
So
born as a man,
okay, so
they would go.
it's either use this bathroom that's separate from all the others, or use the bathroom in the place you're least comfortable with that does not align with your gender identity, and where you're more likely to get assaulted, because trans women are more likely to be assaulted by cis men. So we're saying you use that bathroom instead. Will
I
this
would, I know,
separate
I would,
will this new real quick will this new separate bathroom be equal to the other bathrooms?
in terms of what, just like what's in it?
Like facility cleanliness, will it be equal to them?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah.
Okay, so it will be separate, but it will be equal.
I, yes,
So separate but equal.
yes.
Okay, separate but
It's
equal
not
bathrooms.
separate
Got it.
though. It's not.
No, it
You're
is.
making,
It's separated.
but if you have the option to use the other one, it's not separate.
No, they don't have the option to use the other one. You are forcing them to either use the one that aligns with their gender identity. You're forcing them to use the one that aligns with the sex they were assigned at birth, or they use the separate bathroom. You're forcing them to go
Right.
into a place where they're at risk for harm, in a place that will negatively affect them psychologically, or they use the segregated bathroom.
Sure.
You don't see an issue with that?
I see an issue with the fact that mm, I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, it's not like I see what you're saying in terms of like separate but equal, the whole race thing. But at the same time, like race you are born at, like you are born, like you cannot
Yes,
be a different race.
trans people are born. You can't change your gender identity. That is something innate.
I disagree, but you know, I respectfully disagree, but it's still on the aspect of if
Did you know that trans women are 4 times more likely to experience gender violence than cis women?
what and see that's a skewed stat because violence is under the umbrella of physical violence not as well as verbal assault. So it's not just like like you know they're physically getting beat up.
Wait, yes, trans women can get physically beat up in male bathrooms.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that it's a skewed stat because it's assumed that it's all physical.
No, the gendered violence statistic is all physical violence. It's not emotional violence. It is all some form of physical violence, typically some form of assault.
Right, but you can also like, or is it just like it doesn't say anything, it's just assault, right? It's not specific to
I mean,
anything, it's just assault.
I can give you the detailed ones from the report if you'd like.
I mean, sure.
Transgender people are victimized over 4 times more often than cisgender people. Transgender people experience 86.2 victimizations per 1,000 people compared to 21.7 victimizations per 1,000 people for cisgender people. Transgender women and men had higher rates of violent victimization, 86.1 and 107.5, than cisgender women and men, 23.7 and 19.8. 1 in 4 transgender women who were victimized were victims of hate crime. Transgender households had higher rates of property victimization than cisgender households, and about half of all violent victimizations were not reported to police. And transgender people are as likely as cisgender people to report violence to police.
You said they are more likely to, you said? Or at least like,
They're as likely to report violence, which is that most people don't report violence in
right,
general.
right. Okay. Well, well, it's an unfortunate statistic, but so what if I, as a man, am not comfortable with I like not like I would ever hurt anybody, but like because I'm not comfortable with somebody being in my space, like do the
Why do we treat bathrooms like they're our homes?
they're not, but they're
Okay.
where you shower, go to the bathroom. It's where
Sure.
you're probably
What if I, as a black man, am not comfortable with white men in my bathroom, in my space? What do I do then?
That's that's not really a fair comparison to make
How is it not?
because one has something completely you're completely different than the other. Like you're born
Yes, I
as
know they
something
are
very
two
different.
different things. I'm using it. I'm like analogizing them, which means I take two different things and I find
I'm aware.
commonality in those two different things. So I know they're different, but why does the analogy not track?
The analogy doesn't track because one is you had to change who you were as what you were born as versus one where you are naturally that and you have no change to your body whatsoever.
Wait,
I
I
can
would
go.
wait. Hold on. So I have a trans woman who has not done
Mhm.
anything to change her body from
Okay,
what she
so
naturally
that would
is.
just be a woman, right?
Yes, trans women would be women.
No. What I'm saying is like that'd be a cisborn man, right?
Transgender women were born male.
Yeah, okay, so that would be so okay, let's reverse it. Let's say it's a cisborn women, you know, uh being transitioned to being a male, right? And then they're in like a man space.
Okay, a trans man in a men's space. What's the issue?
Okay, no. Oh no, I'm just saying like use that instead. I was just asking you
Sure,
to use
if a
that.
trans man has done nothing to socially transition and wants to use my bathroom, and I say I don't want them in there, is that would be the same as saying I don't want a white person in here. They have none of them. Neither of them are done anything to their biology.
But they have changed who they are. Like they were born something and then they are now currently not that as what they were born as
No, nobody is
or no
born.
longer identify as
You're
that.
not born cis or trans. You develop a gender identity up towards age 7
Oops.
as you age, and that gender identity is like entirely inherent to you. So like you weren't cis and then you became trans. You always had this gender identity.
Oh, uh okay. Well, with that, with that in mind then. So like let's say I was always born a man. I've been a boy, been a man, whatever through my entire life, but somebody who didn't have that, who was born a boy, but with the, with not with the different parts than a girl, obviously. I'm just trying not to use any kind of verbiage that'll get you kicked or something. But if you follow what I'm trying to say, they were born with a specific set of parts, and now they no longer identify with those same parts,
So
right?
you're saying born male.
Right. And now they do not they identify as a female now. So they did change what they were because they did not identify with what they were born with. That's like
No.
saying
Okay,
yes,
something
that
that you keep thinking that like they magically one day wake up and their gender identity is different. That's not how it happens. That's just not how gender identity works.
right. So
Gender
I get
identity
what
is
you're
inherent to us. It doesn't change. It is one thing and it stays
hmm
that one thing throughout your whole life.
So you're telling me that that's not true because there's plenty of people who have detransitioned and
That means their
became
gender identity was never that of woman.
so then in that case it would be complete dysphoria, which is a mental illness.
No, dysphoria is not classified as a mental illness. That's also not what dysphoria is. Dysphoria
But
just means that
gender dysmorphia.
there's no such thing as gender dysmorphia.
Yes, there is. I'll look it up for you right now, just so
There's
I
gender
don't.
dysphoria.
That's what I meant. Sorry.
Yes, but that's not what gender dysphoria means. Cis people have gender dysphoria. It's like not an inherent trans thing.
Right, but what I'm saying is that not under the idea of gender dysmorphia if they
There's no such thing as
no
gender
longer
dysmorphia.
identify dysphoria? Sorry, I don't like how I keep saying that. Dysphoria.
They might have desisted from dysphoria because
Right, but they believe.
sometimes you can have dysphoria that's not persistent, meaning you desist from it. But if you transition, typically it's because you have a persistent dysphoria, uh, not a desistent one.
Right. What I'm saying is like if they go through the process, they become trans, and then I like their identity is no longer that of like a trans person. Is that not gender dysphoria?
No, I would just say their identity was never that of a trans person. They might just not have understood their own identity properly.
Okay, so if that is the case, then I mean, it doesn't really make sense to me then why somebody can just, you know, they believe, true heartedly they're a woman one day, and then, reality sets in for them and they detransition. Whatever that looks like for
There are
them,
lots of
I don't know.
reasons. Now, the detransition rate is only about high end 3%. On the very high end, it's 3%. And typically, the detransition rate is more about like regret, whether they regret transitioning. And when we look at why they regret, typically it's because they can't afford their transition, or it's because of social stigma from transitioning. When we look at the detransitioners who did detransition because they realized their gender identity was different from what they thought it was, it's just because they weren't 100% sure about their gender identity to begin with. Now, a very, 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 very minute amount of people, I'd say less than 0.5%, might have been coaxed into some type of transitioning, right? The very minute, like the most rare thing you're going to find. But most people who
Mhm.
detransition were not that gender identity to begin with. It just wasn't their gender identity.
Okay, and out of that percentage, there's only about 1.6 million trans people in the U.S. And it's actually at a rate of 8% that detransition.
It's not.
I didn't look at the statistics as to what was causing it, but
If you look at the detransition that stay detransition, because most people that detransition transition back once they're in different social settings or have the money to afford transitioning.
okay. About 1% regret the rate after they transition. Okay. Okay. All right. That's honestly all I had to say about it.
All right. Well, then thanks for coming up. I'm going to move on to the next person.
All right. Appreciate it.
No problem. Have a day.